Bills defense versus the Dolphins run game in general, but it really ties in with your first point, that interior defensive line and then the second level defenders. The Bills have to win up front versus the run. They have to win with the defensive line. They have to get penetration. They have to get push. Miami's going to throw so much at you in the run game, and I'm going to show a couple clips of it in a minute, that it is going to put those second level defenders in hell. It is going to make them, like you were talking about, it's going to put them in conflict. It's going to make them have to think like they have their coverage responsibilities. But then if the defensive line is getting eaten up, that's a bigger problem. And Miami's run game, you mentioned a couple of the stats already. So Miami's run game this year, these are some big ones. They're first in yards after contact at 291 yards. They're third in yards after contact per rush. They're second in broken tackles. They're second in missed tackles. They're first in broken tackles plus missed tackles forced per rush at 25.8%. They're second in EPA per rush, and they're second in total EPA. This dangerous passing attack with all this speed now has a legitimate pivot and complementary piece in the run game with, again, two speedy backs with Mostert and A-Chain. A-Chain has good contact balance too. He's a speed merchant, so it's understandable. But my favorite thing about him when watching his tape at A&M coming out was he was such a tough runner, and he showed a couple times, the one touchdown run early, I think the one that put Miami up 14-0. He dips under, I think, Singleton, and then carries Damari Mathis and drags another defender like over the line for the touchdown. Like, he's tougher. And so you have all that, the speed, the agility, broken tackles, and all this in the run game for Miami. We know what they do with the pass game as well. But the Bills defense, from a rush perspective, they're giving up 4.7 yards after contact per rush this year. That is the most in the league. The Broncos are second at 3.4. So they basically have a 1.3 yard difference between them and whoever's in second. With the Dolphins' speed and how they create leverage in space, that's very much less than ideal. And if you take it back to the Week 15 game in 2022, the night game in Buffalo that the Bills won 32-29, the Dolphins ran for 188 yards in that game. And the Bills' run defense in that game allowed 5.6 yards after contact per rush. That was the most in the league that week. The Raiders were second at 4.5. So again, over another full yard difference. And then the Bills defense in that game, 23.8% broken tackle plus missed tackle force percentage in that game. Miami also in that game had a 0.36 EPA per rush. That was the highest in the league for that week. And for reference, the Lions in 2022 led the entire NFL in EPA per rush at 0.09. So the Lions were the best rushing team on the year at 0.09. Miami had a 0.36 rushing EPA per attempt in that game, which is unreal. Like, that's, if teams could do that regularly, they would run the ball on every snap. It's just nuts what they can do from a statistical standpoint. And it ties into, what you were talking about, Miami's pass play last year, that whole seam wheel slide route that they got to out of almost any personnel, any formation, anything they try to do. Now they're starting to incorporate that piece in the run, and it also works in with that fast motion or that burst motion from Hill. So I got Tyreek Hill circled right now, and you'll see it on the play. And this also ties into Teron Armstead getting out on the perimeter. You get some crack toss action here, like you were talking about earlier. Look at all the space for Mostert, what he does. Armstead's out there making plays. Boom. Okay, so you have a successful run. But my bigger piece with it is, like you talked about earlier, how it ties in with everything else they're doing and what it looks like. So if we let the play run and we stop it right here, this could be your wheel, this could be your seam, and goal could be the slide route or the flat route easily. Like, it ties in so well. So if you're the defense, and I feel bad for Damari Mathis there, number 27. He sees Hill move and he is out. He's like, uh-oh, here it goes. You have to respect that speed. You have to also respect, again, that pass concept, the seam, wheel, flat piece, because of how dangerous it's been. And this run could have easily turned into that. So now they are, like you talked about, instead of having Hill come from here and going all the way across field, now they're lining him up on that same side and using that burst motion or that fast motion. And now they're also tying in some of their run concepts into that dangerous pass concept piece, which is, again, even more of a problem. And then this other play that I have, this run to me was just nuts. So you have Mostert starts out wide, motions into the backfield, and then you've got 2x2 condensed. This is A-Chain right here. They bring Berrios in orbit motion, who becomes essentially a lead blocker. They have the run action to Mostert, and then they run the end around A-Chain And there's just so much space. And there's Denver bodies everywhere. And look at A-Chain's just jumping and breaking tackles and carrying guys. And this piece from the end zone angle, like we talked about it, right? Like the hesitation, making you have to think, like, watch the second level defenders as everything's happening here. So they start to shift already because they're like, okay, here comes some motion. And then you get a flash of color because they ran a puller right here. So now it's like, uh-oh, let me stop because maybe this is coming back this way. Plus I see the running back. He stopped moving. He stopped moving. He stopped moving, which is now created leverage because you're getting out on the perimeter. And now you've created angles, geometry, for your offense to get out and seal these guys and make plays. And then everybody's caught inside. You have everybody leading out in front. This is so funny here. Just bodies. Body.
Just leave them in the wake. I think the funniest part about this play is right there. That's Connor Williams. He popped the wheel on this play. Hamstring is done. And it doesn't matter because Devin A-Chain is 30 yards downfield. If you rewind it back, I think there's something really important here with this Dolphins run game. Look at how light the Broncos are playing up front.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how light that is. They're playing, looks like two eyes and two edges.
Yeah.
They're playing naturally light because you're so worried about the pass.
Mm-hmm.
And in the motion, I think this is what I'm most worried about with Teron Johnson motioning in and out of the box. They're going to run that puller play. They're going to run that pull. And I want to see if they bump Teron Johnson inside the box, are they going to incorporate Teron Johnson? Are they going to force him to keep hitting these guards over and over? And as much as I love Teron Johnson, that shit hurts.
That'll wear you down.
Believe me. Hitting a 300-pound man 40 times a game, that hurts. So I wonder what the Bills will try and do to keep Teron Johnson, not to say he's a liability here, but you want him not thinking. You want him reacting naturally. I wonder what they do to keep him out of conflict in this run game. Because like you said, they throw so much eye candy at you. They throw so much, like the first run play was so well designed. Because like you said, it incorporates everything that they run. And look, if you go back to it, what they did is that is the outside corner. That's the boundary corner right there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I love for offenses to do is force the corners to tackle.
Yes, they're in theory. I talked about it on last week's show. Like in theory, the corners are the worst tacklers on the team. Make them live in that spot. The Bills have been doing it the way they've been running. They ran more traditional gap scheme with pullers this past week, but against the Raiders, they hammered duo and they washed it down and they made Bennett and Marcus Peters have to tackle over and over, and it didn't work. Like, so sorry, I got excited. Continue.
Yeah, they get paid to cover. They don't get paid to tackle. And one of the things I noticed that was super cool about it is you can tell the Broncos are so worried about this burst motion because they're just locking Damari Mathis on Tyreek Hill. They don't want to leave that little hook area open with the communication of passing the route off, because now with the run play, you have so much space with how wide Tyreek Hill gets. And now you have a corner out there on a fullback or a tackle. And like I said, they get paid to cover. They do not get paid to take on blocks. And now you're off to the races. So that's just how you manage the space that the Dolphins create in the run game is going to be such a critical thing for this game. How you manage to close that space, make them work in tight, confined areas. That goes for the run and pass game. Flood the area, make them, squeeze them in. I think the biggest thing for the Bills is try and force everything back inside. Force it to your numbers. If you let them get to the outside, they're going to win that foot race. They've shown multiple times they have multiple dudes who are going to win that foot race.
Yeah, that's so well said. Like, and what really scared me, like, as if I'm trying to figure out how to stop Miami or at least, like, again, like, slow them down, that whole piece, like, and it was known last year, the spacing and the leverage and the conflict, all of it was known in the pass game. Now they've managed to do it in the run schematically. Like, they're creating space. Like, we just showed 2 runs there. Look how much space A-Chain had on that end around. Look how much space Mostert had on that first one I showed. And that was consistent, especially on the edges. And now that Teron Armstead is, hopefully healthy for Miami, if you're a Miami fan, boo, if you're a Bills fan, he's now, like you said, like he's pulling that Trent Williams action where he's just out in space, crushing linebackers and safeties. And both of those clips, he's downfield, just making plays. And them working on the perimeter with these crack toss runs is terrifying for a defense because it's creating runways for two of, if not the two fastest running backs in the NFL with Mostert and A-Chain. And again, that was something that you had to live with from a passing perspective. Like, oh, like look at the way he schemed up Hill and Waddle. Man, it's so great and working with Tua. Now they're doing it with the run game, and you can get caught out now in the run, just like you can get caught out in the pass. And when you get caught out against Miami, it's not like, well, 7 yards turned into 15. It's no, 7 yards turned into 75 and you're done. And it's a touchdown. And whew, it's problematic.